Do you or your kids have swollen tonsils? If so, you gotta watch this because I wish my parents knew this information before they had my tonsils removed. So what we're gonna talk about is what causes swollen tonsils, what are some things to do about swollen tonsils, and why removal isn't always the best option. So what causes swollen tonsils? Let's cover the most common thought cause of swollen tonsils: infection. Now here's the thing. Can your tonsils become infected, swollen, inflamed, red? 100% yes. That absolutely can happen. However, what I found is most of the time when I'm working with clients and talking about either themselves or their kids, majority of the time, the tonsils aren't actually swabbed to see if it is an infection. So that begs to question, is there an infection actually present, or is there something else causing the tonsils to be swollen? Now, here's the thing. If there is an infection, that absolutely needs to be addressed. And addressing the infection might need more than antibiotics. So stay tuned for the solutions at the end of this video. The second cause of swollen tonsils, which I actually believe is probably the number one cause of somebody having swollen, inflamed tonsils, is mouth breathing. If you see somebody who is walking around and their mouth is open, they're not talking, they're not chewing, but they're breathing through their mouth, that is a big problem. If that is you or your kid, we got to address that. Now, one other thing is you might not be breathing through your mouth during the day, but you might be a mouth breather at night. Guess what? That's me. So if that's the case, what I'd like you to do and what I usually recommend doing is either have somebody look at you about 2 hours, or you go look at your kids 2 hours after they fall asleep. That's usually when they're in a deeper sleep, and you'll find out whether or not they're mouth breathing or not. If their mouth is open, they're mouth breathing. And that's going to be one of the causes for why their tonsils and potentially adenoids are inflamed. Now, here's why. Our tonsils and adenoids are actually big filters. Remember, all of our lymph nodes are filters. Tonsils are really just a big cluster of lymph nodes found in the back of our throat. And the whole purpose of our tonsils is to actually filter both the air that we're breathing along with the food and beverages that we're consuming. Now, why we do that, or why we have tonsils in that location, is so that our lungs and our gut don't have to take care of foreign invaders, whether it's dust particles, whether it's infectious material, whether it's waste. The tonsils are there to filter it out before it gets into our system. So if we're breathing through our mouth, which, P.S., our mouth really is made for chewing, eating, drinking, talking, and smiling. It is not made for breathing. Now, can we breathe through our mouth when our noses are congested? Absolutely, because we gotta get oxygen in. But realistically, what's supposed to happen is we're supposed to breathe through our nose. And if we're not breathing through our nose, which, by the way, our nose has these hair-like structures which filter out the air. Not only does it filter the air, it also moistens it if we're in a dry environment, making it more suitable for our lungs. So nasal breathing is really the top choice for breathing. Now, if we are mouth breathers and that constant change and dryness in our mouth filtering things out is 100% going to put more pressure on our tonsils. So if you see that you or your kids are breathing through your mouth, I'll tell you what to do at the end when we start talking about solutions. So the second cause is mouth breathing. The third cause that I see most common is food sensitivities, and we'll clump allergies in there as well, whether it's environmental, pet dander, those types of things. Food sensitivities, what will happen is it will drive up inflammation, and that inflammation, having an increased inflammation or inflammatory response in our body, is going to cause our tonsils to become more swollen and red, especially if it's food that we're eating all the time. So working with a practitioner to find out what are you eating or what is your kid eating all the time that could potentially be causing their tonsils and adenoids to become inflamed might be a good idea, especially if they've had their tonsils swabbed, there's no infection, you've looked at them, they're not mouth breathing, then I would absolutely look into food sensitivities. Okay, so let's say you're looking at all three of those. What would be the solution? Well, number one, if there is an infection present, what I would also do is I would also have a CBC run with a differential to see, is this an acute infection or is this a chronic infection? Because in blood, we'll be able to see how long that's been there. So if it's been there a very long time, you're gonna want to address it and make sure that you're supporting your immune system so that your immune system can also take care of it. That's the first thing. Sometimes needing to work with other practitioners like functional medicine doctors to find out what's actually driving the infection. Is it bacterial? Is it viral? Is it a parasite? Maybe a wise decision versus just hammering it with antibiotics, especially if the antibiotics aren't working. Remember, antibiotics, there may be a time and a place, but a lot of times what can happen is we're using antibiotics when it's not a bacterial infection, which will then also increase your chance or likelihood of developing antibacterial resistant strains, meaning you're not going to respond to antibiotics when you truly need them. Okay, the second thing that I would absolutely recommend you do is when you're looking at yourself, your kids, 2 hours after they sleep, if they are mouth breathing, I 100% would recommend finding an airway specialist dentist. Reason being, that usually tells me that there's either a tongue tie present, which majority of the time, what I've seen with my clients is there is a tongue tie present. When a tongue tie is present, it's preventing your jaw and maxilla to develop properly, meaning there's not enough room for your tongue. And when there's not enough room for your tongue, what's happening is you end up ultimately needing more oxygen, which isn't getting in through your nose. So our mouth opens to try and get more air in. So working with a special dentist to help look, is there a tongue tie, and then determine, do we need to address the shape and the development of the jaw, could be the solution to your tonsils. And then working with somebody to find out food sensitivities could be really beneficial because, again, if you're eating foods that are constantly driving up inflammation, that's 100% going to cause inflammation of the tonsils. Because remember, the tonsils are filtering everything out from what we breathe, what we eat, and what we drink. So if we're breathing through our mouth or we're eating or drinking foods that we're sensitive to, it's absolutely going to irritate those tonsils. So those are the few things that I would definitely start with when somebody has swollen tonsils. Now, simply removing your tonsils doesn't actually fix the root cause. If you're still mouth breathing, you get your tonsils removed, but you're still mouth breathing, that's going to cause other problems. Not to mention, if you get your tonsils removed and you continue to eat foods you're sensitive to, that's going to continue to cause other problems. Or if you just remove your tonsils, but there's still a hidden infection, a hidden chronic infection in your body, that's still going to cause problems. So really trying to find the right person to work with to find the root of why your tonsils are swollen should really be the number one thing we are striving to do. If you found this information helpful, be sure to subscribe as I'm going to share so much more information on drainage techniques and what to do at home, not to mention different things about our drainage systems like lymph, liver, and gut. As always, thanks for being here and happy draining.